Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's What Turns You On webinar. I'm Dr. Alexandra Katehakis, and today is Monday, January 6, 2025. And I'm happy to be here with all of you in this very first back to work week, at least, of the new year. So today we're going to be talking about self-care, which I think is probably a great New Year's topic. But before we get started, as usual, I want to remind you about some basic housekeeping issues. And for starters, to make sure you type your questions into the Q&A box because I can only see the Q&A box. So don't type them into the chat. If I say anything, if I reference a book or a resource, that will go into the chat so you can read it. And then your Q&A questions I'll answer as we go along as usual. And also to be sure to leave us any comments you have about the book at your convenience on Amazon. If you go to What Turns You On, A Guide to Living Your Best Sex Life, you will find the book there. And let us know what you like about the workbook, how you're using it, how maybe it's influenced your own sexual discovery process or ways it's helped you in a relationship or anything along those lines. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel just by clicking the subscribe button below. So you can keep up with what we're doing here and not miss any of our postings. You can also keep up with what's happening here at Center for Healthy Sex by following me on Instagram at Alex Katehakis or at Center for Healthy Sex. And finally, make sure to sign up for our mailing list by clicking the link in the chat box so that you can uh, be kept abreast about our upcoming events, webinar services, etc. And this webinar series will explore my workbook, What Turns You On, A Guide to Living Your Best Sex Life. And it's designed to help you to get honest with yourself about how you define sex so that you can enjoy the kind of touch and sexual activities you really like, and so that you can have explicit and hopefully meaningful and safe exchanges with a sexual partner. Um, So once we get started with that topic, or before we get started with that topic, I just want to tell you that we canceled this webinar last month, the first Monday of December, because I had a cold and I was really feeling bad. I was sick, and I didn't think it would be a good idea to do a webinar on self-care while I had a cold and didn't feel well, because that was not good self-care. And yet here I am a month later just getting over a cold. So unlike the 1st of December where I had a fever and I really needed to be in bed, I'm on the back end of a cold right now. But that's why I sound like I have a cold. So this is a fine line and something that we can certainly talk about today about, where self-care ends and begins, what happens when we have obligations to other people, where that line is for all of us. And I'm reminded of, when we get on an airplane, any of us, we're always told that if there's an emergency on the airplane, that we're supposed to put our own oxygen mask on first before we try to help anybody around us. And the point of that is if we don't take responsibility for our own care, then we're not really in a state to take care of anyone or anything else. So if I am so bedraggled, let's say I had a fever today and body aches and real cold symptoms, and I came to work to do this webinar. Well, first of all, not only am I contaminating my coworkers and my clients, but I'm also not present enough to think. I'm not clear-headed enough to really help the people I'm supposed to be helping. So it becomes an act of selfishness, even though it can get constructed as an act of selflessness. Well, I should go to work because I don't want to let people down, because I committed to this webinar, because I have clients. So I need to go there and take care of other people. Meanwhile, I'm in no shape to take care of other people. So ultimately, I let those people down. And that is the line that I'm talking about here, as opposed to knowing that I'm definitely on the mend, even though it sounds like I'm underwater. I can tell because my energy's good. I don't have a fever. I can be here safely and carry on with my responsibilities. And that is a good bellwether for all of us to hold up when we ask ourselves, am I taking care of myself? Am I doing the right thing here? And of course, there's the overarching daily things that we can do, like eating well, getting enough sleep, exercising, and taking care of our homes and our surroundings to make sure that we feel well internally and externally. So, setting appropriate boundaries and pausing before reacting are all forms of self-care also. So, we just came out of the big holiday season for many of us. And with that came sometimes poor eating habits, probably a little bit too much sugar for everybody, maybe taking a break from working out. Everybody's routine gets upended when we have visitation from friends and families. We don't have time, or we have time off from work. So our regimented schedules, the things that we do to take care of ourselves, can often collapse during these weeks. And then we find that we stretch boundaries with family members also, like they drop in or drop over or stay longer than you thought they were going to stay. Or we end up staying longer because we can't get a flight out or the weather's bad or something along those lines. So this is a time to really ask yourself, where are my boundaries? Where did I collapse them over the holidays? And to have compassion about it also. If you did, you did. It's no big deal. But to look at how we can do better. That's always my question. Um, I think, Maya Angelou says, do your best, and when you know better, do better. So do your best, and when you know better, do better. And that's what I'm talking about here. So, doing a holiday autopsy, if you will, on what your self-care was like and what can you do better next year. And it's even worthwhile, I think, to journal about this. If you keep a journal, and to mark that entry so that next November you can go back and read what you wrote to yourself today about how to get through the holidays in a healthier way next year, so that you are taking care of yourself and therefore everybody around you. So sometimes we do abandon our own care to focus on others, with the hope that we'll be inspired or blessed, or the person we save will return the favor out of gratitude. And especially during the holidays, that seems like a generous way of being, that I'm going to, not be so rigid about my boundaries. I want to give. It is the spirit of giving anyway. And it's not just about giving material items, it's about giving of ourselves. Often people who spend a lot of time cooking for friends and family are putting forth a large amount of energy. And that is a big energetic give. And so, how are you resourcing yourself along the lines of that giving? Or are you just exhausting yourself and then you got to pick up the pieces and clean up and deal with everything? Or are you asking for help? Are you uh, employing everybody around you so that everybody pitches in and helps and that you're not just on your own? So the best any of us can do for others is to take care of ourselves, right? Physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. If we don't truly take care of our own needs first, not in a selfish way that we can't begin to understand or focus on what our sexual needs are. And that's important when it comes to sex and sexuality because um, we can't really know who we are if we're not taking care of ourselves. And we can't really express what we want or need sexually if we don't know what we need and what we want and who we are. And so it really is a self-perpetuating loop. So who am I? What do I like? What does turn me on? What is yes for me and what is no? And what is maybe? And how do I clearly delineate all those things so I can start to express them to a partner? And it, I know that that was a bit of a leap from the holidays to sex, but it all ties together in my thinking that sex is not something that we just do or have with another person in the privacy of our bedroom. And it's just that one thing. I think it's a holistic proposition that how you feel about yourself, how you take care of yourself, how you attend to everything, your hair, your teeth, your nails, your physical exercise, what you eat, what you're thinking about, what kind of media you're ingesting, is really important because all of that ties into our bodies and our sexuality. And we are holistic creatures. It's not just a mind or just a body. It's all part of the whole. And if we are sick psychologically, our bodies will be sick. If we are physically injured, we're going to have a hard time emotionally. So, how clean is your house? Our bodies certainly are our temples. And if we're not attending to them holistically, we're going to have trouble in all areas of our lives. So, sexually, self-care involves attending to your sexual health and pleasure and knowing when and how to say no, even though your body might be saying yes and vice versa. And this goes back to consent always, that you have to be responsible for your pleasure and be responsible for what's right for you. And when you say no today, doesn't mean that you'll say no tomorrow. But when you say yes, you have to know that it's a full-bodied yes also. And maybe your body is saying yes, but you know it's not the best thing for you. Like if I had been not feeling well. Actually, I started not feeling well the day after New Year's. But I would never have had a drink of alcohol if I knew I was getting sick. So my mind might be saying, oh, yeah, that would be fun. It's celebratory. But my body's saying, I don't feel well. I feel under the weather. So there has to be a discernment in that that says, no, not now. Not in my best interest overall. It might be momentarily fun, but it's not going to be so fun on the other side of that. Um, Someone writes, how can we socialize our children to engage in self-care? And at what age should we be having this conversation and sexual pleasure and sexual health and consent? Well, I think from day one, you're engaging your children in self-care, and that has to do with how well you take care of your children, how well they are nurtured and cared for because we replicate what we know over and over again. So if a mother, father is attending to their infant and changing their diaper and keeping them warm, or if the baby's too warm, cooling them off, making sure they're fed, all of that is self-care. And that self-care builds capacity internally on a neurobiological level, not a intellectual self-esteem level that comes later. But that baby has a sense of agency in its body because it's being attended to, it's being kept clean, it's being fed, it's being regulated. And as we go along, it gets a little bit harder when you have to teach children to brush their teeth. When it's novel, they might think it's fun, but eventually it gets boring. So then we have to instill routine. And I think the best way to socialize children with self-care is through routine. You brush your teeth every night before you go to bed. You take a bath before you go to bed. You're clean. Why is it important to be clean? And, having conversations with them about that. That they wear clean clothes to school. When clothes get dirty, you put them in the dirty clothes so that you're creating habits for them. So when they become adults, they're functional adults. They can go live on their own and they know how to wash a dish or do their laundry or put their clothes away. Or, brush their teeth, floss their teeth. Those are essential for good and healthy habits for a lifetime. And I worked with numerous clients, adults over the years that just had such deprivation that they didn't learn to take care of themselves as children because their parents were neglectful. So everything you do matters when they're children because these are habits they will take forward in the same way you took forward the habits your parents gave you. And then conversations about sexual pleasure and sexual health and consent are developmental tasks along the way. Sexual pleasure probably starts very young because children around the age of 4 like to touch their genitals. They like to look at their genitals. They like to feel them. It feels good. And so shaming them is not a good idea because that can start to create a very shame-based relationship with the body, but affirming that yes, it feels good, but it's private and it's only for you, and you can't do it outside of the house or outside of your bedroom. You can't do it in the grocery store when we're grocery shopping. And you have to always make sure that nobody touches your body is what you can tell somebody as young as kindergarten, that it's not okay for anybody to touch your body without your permission. And if anybody touches your body without your permission, then you need to let me know immediately so that they know that they're not in trouble for that. So these are all small ways to start to teach self-care. Someone says I struggle mightily with being unable to stay in my rational brain when I'm triggered. I'll reach out for food without being able to realize how I'm hurting myself. I'm in therapy for a long time. I'm still stuck there. Well, these are very, very strong neuronal patterns. Without a doubt, these are neuroplastic patterns. Plastic because they're changeable. So the work that needs to be done is the work that's done in between therapy. And it's hard to imagine and conceptualize that we have to retrain our brains. We have to unlearn these patterns. So during the day, every day, first of all, you have to ask yourself, um, what triggers you? What is the thing that triggers you? And generally, for everybody, it's fear. And even if we're under stress, we don't think about stress as a fear state, but our brains are registering fear. It's not a rational, let me just put it this way. Our left brain, rational parts of ourselves understand that it's stress. I'm really stressed out right now. I've got so much I've got to do. Oh my God, how am I going to get this deadline down? I'm so stressed out. But the deeper part of the brain, the more primitive part of the brain, is only registering fear. That's what it's registering. So, with that fear, you have to tell yourself that you're safe. And in your case, you have to tell yourself that you're safe all day, every day. So, reminding yourself that you are safe, that you're taken care of, that you don't need to eat unnecessarily, that you don't need unnecessary food signals from your brain are the kind of things you have to tell yourself constantly. And I would recommend that you create affirmations and that you say them every day, that you record them and you listen to them every day. And you get to the bottom of, first of all, what is the trigger and what are the messages that you need to give yourself, and that you keep doing this over and over. And it may take you a year or 2 or 3, but you have to unlearn these patterns, these firing patterns, in addition to everything else you're doing. Hopefully, you have an OA program, therapy, you have people you can call when you get triggered, you have other stopgap measures so that you're not just going from, 0 to 100 without putting other measures in the way, other speed bumps, if you will. So I want to remind you that if you have questions, to put them in the Q&A box, not the chat box, because I can't necessarily see the chat box. So most of us remember a time when we were ashamed about our body or our sexuality. For shame, it was being caught by an adult while playing doctor, or typically innocent and normal developmental experience of body exploration. Or it could have been being found out that you were masturbating and you were made fun of. Um, or you were made fun of for your body type or weight by peers or adults. For others, it might have been something as devastating as sexual abuse. Whatever it was, notice how that incident makes you feel when you recall it. Just take a moment to think about that shame. And if you could imagine yourself talking to your younger self from a place of wisdom and kindness inside of you, what do you say to the you that was shamed that might help them heal? What do you wish you had heard that day instead of the negative messages that you received, or the assault, the verbal assault that you received? And when you think about these positive messages about yourself, do you notice any shifts or changes in your body? So, this is a good time to remind yourself that everyone suffers pain in this lifetime, and it's a natural part, a normal part of being a human being. In fact, Pema Chodron says, don't let life close your heart. Don't let life close your heart. So, when you have a moment later today, take the time to sit in silence and put your hand over your heart and repeat those words of wisdom and kindness one more time to that small part of yourself. Now, obviously, this is a meditation that you can take quite a bit of time with by sitting quietly and doing. But it's important to take a moment to have self-compassion for whatever it is you're struggling with, and to jot down the positive messages you heard about your body or your sexuality, and to look at the message that you write down and take the time to turn these into positive affirmations, challenging affirmations that are I am statements about the here and now. And they may be difficult for you to say now because you don't necessarily believe them. But that's why they should be challenging and positive. So something like, I am beautiful and whole, or I have a healthy and beautiful body, and I take care of myself and my body all the time. So someone has written, I am a chronic procrastinator. I limit my artistic and relationships, finance, always put things off. I only realize now that I can acknowledge how much self-harm this has caused. This is post-love addiction, etc. Yes, because oftentimes, the love addiction is on top of everything else. It's a defense against these deeper structures of feeling unworthy, feeling like I don't deserve sort of the same thing, feeling like other people deserve to have it and not me. So getting down to the crux of what that is, which typically goes back to our family of origin. Um, because none of this started as adults. It started a long, long time ago. And these pain circuits are tenacious. These fear circuits are tenacious. And eventually the body breaks down because of it. Or we're in these horrible habits that we cannot get out of. And it's not just psychological, it is neurobiological. We have to reprogram our brains. We have to constantly be reminding ourselves that I am safe, I am worthy, I'm okay. I don't need these pain messages. I don't need these fear messages of procrastination. And to do it with loving kindness, with self-compassion, is crucial to getting through them also. So I do see one note here. And then you have celebrities who promote not taking showers or baths and other personal hygiene practices um, to compete with the influence of social media. Well, I actually don't know about that, but I think there is a fine line between grooming and self-care and being clean and dental hygiene versus the perfectionism of social media, which I can understand why people would push against in some ways, but I really can't speak for exactly what those people's intention is. Um, so what does care of the self mean to you? Because we hear this term self-care all the time, which is taking a bath, going for a walk, lighting a candle, and having a manicure. Now, all of that's really nice and lovely, but what does care of the self really mean to you? And if you don't know, start small. Ponder this question as we walk into the new year. Consider that your relationship to your body, and your self-care are crucial to everything else, from your success in your chosen field to your relationships to your spirituality. So I think it's really important to ask this question: how do I care for myself? What does it really mean to love oneself? Are you embodying that? Do you engage in acts of love with yourself all day long? Do you forget to eat? Are you eating well? Are you drinking too much coffee? Are you not getting enough sleep? These are all um, not acts of self-care, nor are they acts of self-love. So if you were parenting yourself, if you were a small child and you were responsible for you on a day-to-day basis, what things in your immediate environment would you clean up to make sure that this child, this person, was genuinely cared for and nurtured? So if you're disconnected from your body, and you're not whole, complete, or integrated, then you'll be unable to have, the things that you're thinking about, the life you're dreaming of having, because there is a disconnect here. So ask yourself, how can I be kind to myself and my body going forward? Might that be the most important thing for you to embody in this new year? So if you were to write one guiding statement for 2025 based on these ideas, what would it be? What would it say? So take a moment to think about that also. What would be your one guiding statement for 2025? Oftentimes we're asked to make resolutions. And I think it's the second Friday of the new year is when people break their resolutions because they're resolving not to do something. So I'm not asking you to resolve not to do something. I'm asking you to create a guiding statement, something that you can aspire to, something that you can look at when the going gets rough this year, because it will. Life is rough. What is the thing that you want to be uh, your lighthouse that shows you the way, that reminds you what you want to be doing for yourself? All right, so we don't have any further questions here. So with that, I will wish you all a very happy new year, a healthy new year, prosperous and abundant new year. I hope that you all really take time to ask yourself these questions of: how do I take care of myself? What are the loving acts I can engage in? What are the boundaries I need to set? And what is my one guiding statement? You can have two, for this new year. And I look forward to seeing you in February. Thank you.